Hi, welcome to another episode of the Perfect Franchise Podcast. My name is Kris Simonich, and my partner here is Andrea Floyd. And today we have a very special guest. We have Mona James, who's a franchise funding expert. Mona, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
We're so glad to have you, Mona. I think this is going to be a great conversation. I guess if we can start out, Mona, you've described your position as a funding coordinator. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and then, tell our audience, what do you do? How do you work with us at the Perfect Franchise?
So I think that when I started, becoming a funding coordinator, I did it to truly help people figure out their finance strategy, because that's one of the most important things and challenges that people face. So what is the best way for me to finance this business, capitalize this business where it doesn't put my family, in harm's way, or I'm not betting the farm. So it's really good to have somebody break down options based on multitude of, things that they're looking at. So it just gives the client an overall sense of relief that they possibly could afford a business because they weren't really sure how different options work. And it's rewarding to be able to help people do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And can you tell our audience a little bit about how we work together at the Perfect Franchise and work with you?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that a lot of clients appreciate is the fact that when you're helping them through finding that next, chapter in their life, that next business that they're looking for, I think that they love the fact that you put someone in contact with somebody like me so they could go through different options to make sure that, again, funding is right for them. This is all an early stage of discovery. Is a franchise right for me? Which business makes the most sense? Which one do I feel that I can build, grow, and do I have the capital to do that? So I think that a lot of the clients of your clients that I work with appreciate that you put me in contact with them to put together that puzzle that says they care about me as a person and picking the best franchise and helping me figure that out. But they put me in contact with somebody that has an unbiased opinion on how I should capitalize this. So they feel you're looking out for their best interest all the way around.
Yeah.
Mona, you touched on an important point there, that unbiased opinion, being neutral, right? So can you describe, well, let me ask you it this way. If I'm a client and I'm introduced to Mona James, how is that different than me just going to my local bank and talking to a loan officer there? How is that experience different? And why is it so much more beneficial to talk to somebody like yourself?
Oh God, Kris, I could go an hour for that reason and give you a multitude of things, but I know we don't have that much time. But again, it comes down to the business that somebody's looking at. If you went to a bank for a small business loan, it's finding the right bank with the right fit. So your larger banks have to have that business in their wheelhouse. They have to understand, how long has that concept been around? Is there 200 active franchisees? Are they comfortable with the brand? So I get clients say, well, I can go to my local bank and get a loan. They absolutely could. And it is something they could look into. But if I'm looking at something that I know that a Bank of America or a PNC or a Wells Fargo or a Chase, these great franchise brands out there, but they're not McDonald's, Burger King. Those are the big banks. Those are the brands those banks are looking for. So again, it comes down to, is it a single location, a multiple location? Can I include, working capital? And if you don't have somebody guiding you through that, listen, banks are great, but they don't have that person holding their hand. They're not chasing clients. If you go to them and say, hey, we're thinking about buying a franchise, and the bank says, well, give us all this information, we'll throw it in underwriting, and we'll see what sticks. But nobody's guiding them through, business plan, projections of what that underwriter wants to see. And that's where my area comes in to help people figure that out. Because everybody wants that application in and out with an approval, not in with a million questions. Let's get it in, get it approved, but let's guide somebody through that. Banks aren't chasing clients down. They don't need to because their phone's ringing off the hook. But my client, my role is to make sure they go through it seamless. And that's what you guys pay me to do.
Mona, you know, what are the major options out there that you're typically steering clients towards? Can you talk about those and maybe go into a little bit of detail on each?
Well, I'm glad you addressed it that way, Kris, because there's no one major option I'm going to lead somebody towards. Okay. And I think that's what clients like. So I'm really glad you presented it because sometimes people get on the phone with a lender or a coordinator and they think that's what they're trying to do. Lead them down that, they want them to do. So the way I strategically plan it with my clients is one, I want to learn about the client. What is their background? Is this an absent owner business they're doing? And we got to fit the right funding into the right pattern of what they're trying to do. If it's a low investment under $100,000, I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't recommend an SBA loan. I would recommend something more of a home equity or, there's ways to tap into retirement money without being taxed or penalized. There's cash, there's borrowing against a stock account. So it's each client is strategically planning. There's no cookie cutter lending for each person that I talk to. I could give you 1,000 ways of how I could be creative and put finance together for a client that they were comfortable with. So I want to educate the client on all the options based on the information I gather, break those options down, and let them decide of what they feel is best and lead them to lending. Because when they call companies, pretty much what you said, Kris, when they call a company that says, hey, I'm looking for a business, all that company's talking about is what they have to offer. They're not saying, look, you can do a home equity line of credit. I mean, there's creative ways to take some of that money that they used individually, bring it over to the business as a loan, and let the company reimburse them back and treat that as business expenses versus them eating that home equity line of credit or their cash that they saved that they somewhat may have lent the company. So leading is not in my vocabulary.
No, I think that's great, Mona. And I think helping people really understand that that's why that word coordinator in your title is really important because you're not just going to one bank looking for one option. You're really trying to figure out what is that best option for the client. Just like we're doing at the Perfect Franchise, we're trying to help them find the right business. You're then trying to help them figure out what's the best way to fund it. And sometimes that's a combination of options, right? I've had clients where they've done 2 or 3 different ways that you've helped them really figure out, okay, here's the best combination for you. And so it's not sort of even oftentimes just going down one path, right? It could be multiple paths.
Listen, guys, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a client that literally had a great job, great money in her retirement account, but she had no cash. She literally had no cash to bring into the business and she wanted to buy a business, but she was also sitting with $50,000 in credit card debt. And that dropped her credit score. It wasn't that her credit was bad, so I had to figure out how can I help her find the money for this? So the way we put it together was simple. With $500,000 sitting in her current retirement account and paying high interest credit cards, I told her to go out and look at borrowing against her current 401k of $50,000, which she could, and pay off that credit card debt and paying herself back that interest. Well, when she did that, that allowed me to get that score up, get that debt out of the way, and put together a possible term loan, which is what we did to be able to finance your business. So it's thinking outside the box of that client's current situation to make it work. It's creative things like that. When a client's forthcoming with me and sharing all that, that's how I can strategically figure it out for them. It makes them comfortable. I want them to be comfortable. Just like you guys want to put them in a brain that fits their wants, needs, and desires of what they're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important. And so Mona, kind of talk about, that a great example with that client that you're working with. How much money do people typically bring to the table when they're looking to fund a business?
Oh, guys, that's a loaded question because I'm sitting with clients right now with extremely high net worth. I have one client at 31 million liquid. Guess what? He's doing an SBA loan because he doesn't want to use his cash. Or I have another client that is, has no money, but there's ways to, tap into retirement money under what is called the ROBs to bring that money over that cash injection. So what I talk to clients about are small business loans, what the bank looks for in the borrower, outside income to support living expenses, but we can get creative with that. One of the big misconceptions about SBA loans is if somebody doesn't have a job to pay their living expenses, they cannot secure an SBA loan. That is absolutely positively not true. Because I have clients that's sitting with liquid cash in the bank that could cover 6 to 12 months living expense and they're not working. I can get them a loan as long as everything else falls into place. So it's listening to the clients of what they have and understanding what they have. So some clients want to use very little cash, and sometimes clients want to use all their cash because they may not want to go down a lending program they're not comfortable with. But with the clients that I have with strong networks, they're using other people's money. They're keeping that cash in the bank for reserve. It's all down to the comfort level of what the client's comfortable with. If that makes sense.
It does, Mona, but people can't come in with $0, right? I mean, they're usually having to put some of their own cash injection. Is that right or no?
Yeah, typically on different types of small business loans, it could be a 10 to 20% cash injection based on the loan amount. So again, I don't want people to think that if they don't have that cash, they can't get a loan. There's ways to look at, taking it from a stock account. There's ways of some people have open home equity lines of credit. They could pull that cash injection from. There's ways to tap into retirement money to bring that cash injection to the table. Again, even though they've got 80 to 90,000 sitting in checking, and let's say the project cost is, 250,000, the bank's going to want to see a 20% cash injection typically, and that's 50,000. Some clients might not be comfortable pulling 50, especially if they're walking away from their job to run this full time. So I want to keep as much cash in reserve for living expenses. So we look at other ways to pull that 50,000 through a possible line of credit. I have clients that, friends and family want to be partners in a business. So, equity injection can come from, that type of person. Because listen, if the 11th hour, there's always a partner I didn't know about, right? It's really figuring out to keep them not stressed to grow a business and worrying about paying their mortgage. Because the less stress they have, the more happy they are, and the more successful that they become because they're not, worried about, losing their house or paying their mortgage or, private school for their kids or food on the table. So I really care about my clients to make sure that I'm not putting them in an adversarial position that they could set up for failure. I want them to be able to grow their business and expand it. And putting that funding together today is vital to being able to grow that tomorrow.
No, thank you for that. Now, Mona, I want to circle back because you mentioned that common misconception about SBA loans, right? Are there any other misconceptions that you find yourself dealing with clients when they come to the table, just about borrowing money in general or funding a franchise?
Yeah, there's an ability out there to be able to tap into retirement money to use for, the cash injection or the full funding. So the way that works is the IRS sets the rules of being able to tap into that retirement money. What money is qualified? And when I'm talking to a client about tapping into retirement money and using it for their business, what I'm also helping them understand is there's great benefits to do that. If the plan is set up properly, they literally will have the ability to lower some of what they're paying in corporate taxes and build more retirement money up. So it's a good 45-minute conversation to explain how this program works, because it's very delicate and detailed of how the IRS wants to see it. So a lot of people don't realize what accounts are eligible for this. So what accounts are eligible to tap into are retirement accounts from old employees that are no longer participating in. It could be a 403B, a 401k, a TSP for the military. It could be a traditional IRA. You can't use a Roth IRA. And you can't use an inherited IRA if it's from a family member, non-spouse. So a father or mother left the inherited money to the child. But if a spouse passed away and they left that retirement money to the spouse, that is eligible because they're married, right? And a lot of people say, well, my financial advisor says I'm going to be taxed and penalized on that money. Financial advisors, some understand the concept of the ROBs, some don't. So I always make it a point to get on the phone with the financial advisor to help that financial advisor CPA understand how this ROBs works and give them comfort level, because this is their trusted advisor. I want to invite that trusted advisor in to explain how the rollover works so they can get a comfort level and understand it as well. So they feel like they're giving their client, not the green light, but the ability that says, yes, everything that I understand. Wow, that makes sense. I didn't realize that concept worked that way. So I always invite those advisors in, because if they come back and say, no, you can't do it, bring them on the call, we'll explain it. And I have many of the financial advisors that have an aha moment that say, yeah, actually, that does work, because they didn't understand it. Education of any lending guide is powerful when you have somebody that can easily explain it without overwhelming someone. And that's my goal, to help clients understand the ability to capitalize a business that gives them that peace of mind, if that makes sense. I want peace of mind for those clients.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, Mona. And I know there's so many clients after chatting with you, they come back, and the ROB seems to be one that they were not familiar with. And now I'm hearing even financial advisors don't know that well. And so that's always when they come back. Mona told me about a ROBs. I didn't know anything about it. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where, yeah. Yeah. And so just giving them that education that you give them, they come back and they have this other option. Because I think a lot of times people go into this thinking, I don't want to touch my retirement. I don't want to even go near it. Instead, it's pivoting them to understand you're not pulling money out of your retirement. You're investing in a different way, right? Is that a way to think about it? Is you're investing in yourself, in your own business?
Absolutely. I think one of the misconceptions of the ROBs is exactly what you said. I'm taking on my hard-earned retirement money, and I'm just going to put it in a business. So my role is to help clients understand that you're exactly right. It's investing in themselves. They're moving this money over, to purchase company stock, but in the avenue of the ROBs, depending on what type of plan they set up. Because if you Google ROBs, it will overwhelm you. And it gives different chronological order of events that have to take place to get access to that money. When I speak with a client, I do an extremely deep dive in how it's set up, how you can build wealth in that retirement, and how to exit that business. So if you've got somebody going through each step of the way and really digging deep into helping the client understand that, wow, this is the ability for me to possibly begin in a business with no debt, no loan at all.
Yeah.
But I need to pick, is it a use for the cash injection of a combination, like you said, Andrea, a combination of maybe a home equity and a SBA Robs in a home equity or an FBA and a Robs. I mean, there's combinations to put things together, but they don't feel like they're just pulling from one area.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some great benefits to the Robs that people will not find on Google at all. Trust me. I mean, listen, if it was on Google,
Yeah.
it's all true, right? But I've been doing
Yeah.
this 25 years, helping clients understand there's ability to grow, accumulate, and build retirement money under Robs if it's set up properly. And you've got to find that right company that does that. I'm very particular in where my client goes.
I've got one more question. I don't know about you, Andrea, but
Yeah.
if I can sneak one in here,
Sure.
Mona, is there a right time? Maybe there is no right time, but is there a right time for a client to start talking to you? Should they know exactly what franchise they want to buy? Should they do it much earlier in the process so they have an idea of what is available to them before they fall in love with a franchise they can't afford? What do you think?
Wow, Kris, that is another 1,000 question, another 1,000 answers I could give you. I really like talking to clients early on and to help them strategically say, are you looking for, what are you looking for in a business? What is your level of comfort? So are you looking at a single location, a multiple location, a single, territory? Do you have partners? I mean, there's so much that goes into helping somebody figure out their funding based on keeping their jobs, leaving their jobs. Maybe a lot of husbands or wives say, this is my baby. I don't want my spouse on the loan. Not that there's any reason for them to not be on the loan, but maybe it's just their project. So I have to get that telling story to basically say to clients, based on this information, you literally could afford $1 million business. Or based on what you shared with me, you need to look at businesses under 150 or no more than 250. That gives them an idea without going up saying, I'm looking at, a gym or a Starbucks. I say, hey, I need 50,000 to open up a coffee shop. No, you need more than that. Furniture, fixtures, excuse me, build up. So I love to get clients early on because it helps me paint a picture of their direction to look for stuff. I know I could go on and on about that, Kris, but early on
that's
is always better for me.
And yeah. Okay. Great.
That's great. So Mona, I know we're coming up on time, but I do have one last question I think you can answer quickly for our clients.
Sure.
Sometimes I think clients are hesitant to share their financial details. And how crucial is that transparency and how open should they be as part of this process with you?
That's a great question, Andrea. I have many clients that will share all their financial information with me up front. I think the fear of clients is they don't know me. They're speaking to me on the phone. I get that. So I'm not going to push the client into sharing that with me if they're not comfortable. I have the ability to get around that and go through different options based on what they know they have. Like say, listen, I'm not comfortable sharing this, but can we talk about different finance options? Yes, knows what they have. I think the other fear is clients think that if they have money, the bank wants them to use it. And they don't. The bank wants them to have cash reserve. They only want them to bring a certain percentage to the table. So when I'm talking to a client and I say, what do you have in checking, savings, stock, things like that? Most clients are open to share that because they really appreciate that I'm trying to help them. Every now and then I get a client that says, I'm a little leery. Do I get offended? Absolutely not. Because they don't know me, but I can get around that and still educate them because I've been doing this so long. Then do I like it? Yes. Do I need it? No. Because that client knows what they have with their ability is based on the options. And then I do turn the question around on them and go, look, based on what I've shared with you, which one of these options do you like? And it's interesting. They like them all and they can do all. that's I got strong in it. And I'm not too worried about them making a decision to capitalize the business. We just need them to find the business so we can now put it in place. And they warm up to me. And I think they really believe that I do care. So sometimes that's overcome by just getting to know me and see that I do care about them. That I am truly tried out. So they eventually come around in a good way.
No, that's great. Definitely. Mona, we really appreciate this conversation. I think it's important for our clients to understand there's a lot of different options out there. There's different ways to fund the business, and working with someone like you that has an unbiased opinion, you're going to really just sit with them, educate them on how to fund the business, talk to them, and then really help them find that combination potentially of ways to fund it. And I think that's really, really important for clients to know. And that's why, we send our clients your way, because we know when we put them in your hands, you're going to educate them. They're going to come out knowing more, and they're going to find a path that makes sense to them. And so I really appreciate that. I know Kris and I have learned a lot today, and every time we talk to you, we do.
Let me add one thing. I'm so sorry. When I do that, I'm going to help them through that whole process from start to finish. I don't want to just educate them. I'm getting them where they need to go to make sure everybody's taken care of and to see that through.
That's great. That's a good point from beginning to end. And I think Kris hit on that. When do you want to be in with them? Early on. No, I think that's really helpful. Thanks for that, Mona. So for those of you listening, if you're considering franchising as a potential path to business ownership, remember, there's no one size fits all to franchise that suits everyone. Even so, there's certainly a franchise out there that's perfect for you. To explore your options and find that perfect match, please visit us at theperfectfranchise.com. By clicking on Let's Talk, you can schedule time to speak with a consultant on the Perfect Franchise team. We look forward to connecting with you again on our next episode. Until then, take care.